Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech. And iOS 26.2 released to the public over a week ago, and iOS 26.3 Beta 1 released to developers and public beta testers a few days ago. But there's even more to talk about since the iOS 26.3 Beta 1 is out what's new video. We'll talk about the latest Apple news, we'll also talk about some new features, and we'll talk about the overall experience. Not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page, where at the time of this video there's over 14,000 votes and 231 comments. I've gone over all the comments to determine what the update is like for most of us, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. It looks like Apple could be adding more ads within their search results within the App Store very soon. A new update on Apple's own ads website states that the additional ads will appear across search. You'll see it says reach users the moment they're searching for apps to download, and it says available in 2026, additional opportunity in search results. So it looks like they're going to sort of put more of these. However, this only seems to be maybe in the App Store, but we could see it roll out to other places as well, specifically for apps. So this is something we should see very soon, but let me know what you think of this in the comments below. There's a new activity challenge for your Apple Watch this week, showing up on December 19th for World Meditation Day, which is on December 21st. You can see it here, posted by Mac Rumors, where it says Apple celebrating World Meditation Day with December 21 Apple Watch Activity Challenge. You can see the different badges you can earn here. So there's some different badges, just like there always is. And basically, you can earn these by recording 5 or more minutes of mindfulness minutes in the Mindfulness app or any mindfulness style app that connects to the Health app. There's also a new 2026 New Year Apple Watch activity that you can earn as well. You can see it here again on Mac Rumors, and if you close all 3 activity rings in January for 7 days in a row, you can earn the new badge. So again, there's some stickers that will go along that you can use in the Messages app as well. There was a huge leak this past week where software from an iPhone prototype that was equipped with an early build of iOS 26 was leaked with a bunch of code that contains new details about upcoming features and hardware. Some products mentioned were an unknown home accessory, AirTags 2, along with AirPods and Vision Pro features, but the biggest leak was upcoming features. Some of the features we've heard before, such as AI-powered health features, live captions expanding to more locations, and Siri updates coming soon with Siri 2.0, probably in iOS 26.4. It also seems that the Freeform app is going to get an update with folders, so if you use Freeform, we should see that in the near future. Also, accessibility features, including updates to live captions, background sound updates, tilt to scroll could be coming, live listen updates for Watch, as well as magnifier updates are expected and much more. The leak also mentioned WWDC 2027 with features tagged regarding sleep updates on iPad and Mac, maybe for even iOS 28. iOS 27 is expected to get some stability features and a few different changes as well. So all of these things are coming in the near future. However, we could see much more than this, as this was just an early leak, and you can see that leak on, again, Mac Rumors website, and I'll post some other ones as well, where they go through quite a few things we can expect as far as other features, accessibility, and much more. It seems Apple has discontinued the flyover feature in Maps, but they didn't tell anyone about it. So if you go into the Maps app here, and maybe you're in New York City, there's no longer an option for flyover. And that would typically bring you over some of the landmarks within that city, just sort of flying over a 3D model version of the city. So if you switch over, you can see a 3D model of the city as you zoom in. You'll see, of course, 3D buildings as they populate, and then you could fly over those landmarks. It seems like they've completely removed this. This is also similar to Apple removing the night portrait mode on the iPhone 17 models. So if you're on your phone, maybe you want to take a portrait, for example, so we slide over, and we no longer have the night portrait mode option. So if we cover the camera here and maybe trigger it to go into night mode, there's just no longer an option. Just like there is on normal modes, you just don't have that option here for photos. So you'll see it's not lit up. If I cover it, you've got the little moon there in the upper right. If I uncover it, it goes away, but it's just no longer available in portrait mode. So that's been brought to my attention by quite a few of you. Why they removed it, we're not really sure, but they've removed it on all of iPhone 17 models. Also, it seems we're getting a new feature soon in Australia with the hypertension notifications. I've talked about this at length. If we go into the Health app, you'll see that I actually had this happen a few times, at least on the same day. I've since been working on that and actually made quite a bit of progress, but you'll see the hypertension notifications really change the way that I use my Apple Watch, and we'll talk more about that in a future video. But overall, it's a great feature, and it's now supposedly going to be able to come to Australia as the government has approved it. Now, I've mentioned Apple Car Key quite a few times in the past couple of weeks, and it looks like one more manufacturer has confirmed it's coming soon to their vehicles. GM has actually mentioned that it's coming soon, and you can see I currently use it with my car, and it works great. It uses less power than using the native apps for those cars, such as Tesla or others that use their app and then run in the background. So this works a lot better, at least in my experience, and it looks like GM will be bringing it soon. Now, macOS Tahoe seems to have an issue many people are having with external displays. So if you connect maybe a studio display, maybe to a Mac Mini or maybe an iMac or even a MacBook, if you have macOS Tahoe up to the latest version, it can actually flicker the display and cause that issue intermittently. It especially happens when you switch from light to dark mode or back and forth. So this seems to be an issue that even gets a little bit worse as we upgrade to macOS 26.2 Tahoe. So hopefully Apple fixes this. They see the issue. It was posted on forums and hopefully it gets resolved soon. But it's definitely an issue for a lot of people. When it comes to iOS 18.7.3, Apple is now forcing users who want the latest security update to install iOS 26. Apple does this every year on devices that support the next version. They make it impossible to downgrade and also make you push to the next version if you want the latest security updates. But this year there's a workaround for now if you want to stay on iOS 18's latest version. I wanted to share how you can do that with the iPhone 16e. This is currently on an older version, so if we go to Software Update, you'll see we're only offered iOS 26.2. However, if you have a beta account or a developer account, you can bypass this. So if we turn this on, now we're on iOS 18 public beta, or again, developer beta this works with, you'll see I now have iOS 18.7.3. So I can update this, get this rolling now, we'll put in the code, get it installed, and then we'll have the latest version with all the latest security updates. So this works for now. Hopefully they continue to do this, but I don't think this will work for long. So be sure to try it out if you wanted to update and you haven't already. As far as features this week, well, Apple pushed a server-side update with Apple Music, changing the favorites mix under your For You or your Home tab to now say Your Essentials. Now, it's not showing currently for me, but under Home, under Top Picks for You, it will now say Your Essentials instead of saying Favorites, instead of confusing it with your favorite songs. So this is a small update. Also with iOS 26.2, there's some updates in Japan. I mentioned this before where there's alternative app stores available, and now there's actually one available with the Alt Store. So this is to comply with new Japanese law, and also in Japan, the power button can now be changed to use an alternative version to Siri. So as long as the app developer updates it, you'll have options for that. In Japan, they also now allow developers to offer in-app purchases with access to third-party payment options in their apps or direct users to their own website for payment as well. Also, the first time users open Safari in Japan, they'll also be greeted with a prompt that allows them to select different web browsers. The same is true with their navigation app and search engine as well the first time they use it. So all of those things were updated with iOS 26.2 in Japan, and as well as that music update that was pushed server-side. When it comes to app updates this week, well, ChatGPT now has Apple Music integration and new updates to image generation. They shared this on their website with the latest updates, and it's available now. Also, there was an update this week with Telegram to allow for passkeys, so if you want to log in, you'll now have that option. Also, some users are seeing updates to Instagram with Liquid Glass. However, it appears that this is only a test and not rolling out worldwide yet. So let me know if you like it. I've seen some people post about it, and basically it just includes the menus that we have down here, where they've converted the Instagram menus to this style. Now, iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max, along with iPhone 17 and iPhone Air, have been out almost 90 days, and I'll have a follow-up for you on that soon, but I'm still up in the air as to which one to choose between the iPhone Air or the 17 Pro Max, or maybe even the 17 Pro. I wondered what you think, as they're both selling pretty well as far as the Pros go. The Air is not selling well, apparently, but I do see quite a few people still using it. I really like the overall form factor. Battery's not the most important thing to me personally, as I'm typically on home and Wi-Fi, but let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Should I just go for it and switch over to the Air, or should I continue to use the Pro phones? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. When it comes to releases this week, well, we had a new update for Powerbeats Pro 2. They pushed a new firmware to version 8A359. There's no mention as far as what it does, but hopefully it adds improvements and maybe some updates with different options with iOS 26.2. But again, Apple really hasn't said anything about it. Apple has stopped signing iOS 26.1. While iOS 26.2 seems to be much better for most people, there's no way to downgrade to any version below that at this point. This means maybe we could see an iOS 26.2.1 to fix additional options. However, I would not expect that until maybe next year at this point. Typically, Apple takes a break for vacation during the holiday and then comes back the second week of January or so. So we could see an iOS 26.2.1 then, and then of course we'll see iOS 26.3 Beta 2 around that time frame as well, maybe Monday or Tuesday during CES. So that's typically what we expect every year. Of course, iOS 26.4 is said to bring Siri 2.0. That's what we expect sometime in March. And then iOS 26.5, 26.6, and all of those are expected throughout the year. But of course, in June at WWDC 2026, we expect iOS 27 to be shown for the first time. So that's where we'll see hopefully some stability, some refinement, and it gets much, much better. With recent leadership changes at Apple, I really hope it gets much better. When it comes to the AirPods Pro 3 experience, many people have said that it's great. The latest firmware update seems to fix the issues with static and hum, or at least for me and many of you. So I wanted to ask if you still have the issue, as Mac Rumors recently posted that quite a few people are still complaining about it. I noticed that issue went away completely, especially when noise cancellation is on. I've really had no issues with it whatsoever, but I wanted to ask you if you're having those issues or if the last firmware update completely fixed it. And to make sure you're on the latest firmware update, just connect your AirPods. We'll go back here and go up to AirPods Pro 3. Scroll down to the bottom, and the latest firmware update is 8B30. As long as you have that, it should be resolved. You'll see the case version should match as well, but it did take a few days for the case to update for me. When it comes to the iOS 18.7.3 experience, overall it's been great. I haven't seen a single comment that says it's bad. In fact, I see a lot of people wishing they would have stayed on iOS 18. Overall, the performance is great. It's on this 16 Pro Max. You can see it here with 22H217 as the build number, and it's performed extremely well. Just super smooth, reliable, and generally what you would expect. So definitely much better, at least than iOS 26 was when it launched. However, iOS 18 was pretty rough when it launched as well, but it's gotten really great and overall reliable. When it comes to iOS 26.2, well, it's pretty good overall, but some people still have some issues. The top bug fixes for it were much smoother performance compared to iOS 26.0.1. The widget panel stutter was removed, and overall it's more stable. Generally, most are positive about it. However, it fixed the heating issues for most. Some people still have those issues though, and battery was fixed for many people after it was done processing in the background. The top complaints, though, were battery drain in general, but again, it needs to take some time to process in the background and index everything, and it can take over a week for that. So make sure you check under your settings within battery and see if it's still processing here. It will let you know if it is. ProMotion seems to be slowing down for some, especially on older devices, so maybe you're scrolling. Some people say it's not as smooth as you would expect, and there's still odd visual glitches from time to time. Things fill in, especially if you're on the clear icons, for example. So if we switch over to clear, sometimes when we swipe from page to page, it fills in all the icons, or it will just reload them in general. RAM management definitely is an issue for some people, and some people are reporting touchscreen issues, especially with YouTube. The YouTube app has been incredibly buggy lately, so I would like to see them update that. I think YouTube needs to fix that, but in general, it's just been very buggy. Also, I had one respring going into Mail on this phone, and also had the iPad crash as well with iPadOS 26.2. Basically, I went into Mail, and it crashed also on 26.3. I found one email that I deleted, and it seemed to fix the issue. So it was from a known sender, so I'm not sure what the issue was, but there was definitely some problems there. Now, CarPlay is working for most at this point, but some say it can take 3 to 4 minutes to connect now. When it comes to connectivity, some people are saying it's just dropping for them randomly for some reason, and I've had issues with my own router, so I don't know if it's the issue with the router or the phone, but either way, there's definitely some issues there. In addition to that, the keyboard bug is not fixed in this version. So if we go into Notes, maybe create a new note here, and you'll see this is a new note. Sometimes it mistakenly types what I haven't typed, so you could press G or F and it will press D next to it on its own. Something that you didn't press, it even shows that you pressed the correct key, but sometimes it will actually type the wrong thing. Also, it seems to lag for some people, especially on older devices, and just that predictive text issue is a major issue, and it's not autocorrect. Also, of course, the ever-present wallpaper bug is there. You'll see it seems to be far less than it was, but it does desaturate some. So still some issues that need to be resolved. When it comes to the iOS 26.3 Beta 1 experience, overall it's pretty stable. It seems to have good performance for most people. RAM management seems to be generally pretty good. However, I have heard complaints of stuttering when scrolling pages. I've seen this when I first unlock the device, but typically after you use it for a little bit, it seems to be resolved. Now, there is an odd issue I saw on Reddit. If we go into settings and search for sound recognition, you'll see here sound recognition, then we turn it on. Then we go down to sounds, we go into one of the sounds, then go to alert tones. And as I've turned off dark mode, you can see it's the iOS 7 interface where it's full widescreen and looks a little off. So this is something they need to correct. It's in iOS 26.3. There's also another issue when you're in the camera. So maybe you're in photos, you're in camera, and maybe you're using the flash. Sometimes the actual camera can freeze. So that's a bug for some people. And then sometimes music just sort of randomly stops. So that's been an issue for me. And then there's odd volume levels. This seems to be an issue Apple can't fix, as I've had the issue over and over, where maybe I'm in the car, I get an announcement that I've got a notification using CarPlay. I answer that notification. Then when it goes back to music, all of a sudden the volume is really low. I do it again, and then the volume's super loud. So this is just something I'm seeing over and over. When it comes to performance, like I mentioned, for most people, it seems to be nice and fast, whether it's an older device, a 15 Pro Max, or a newer device. Overall, the performance seems to be much better on 26.3. Overall ProMotion seems to be improved, and it looks like they've continually fixed some issues with that. Why it slowed down in 26.2 though, I'm not sure. When it comes to overall heat and thermals, well, I've actually found that it stays cooler than 26.0.1, but let's go ahead and run benchmarks and take a look. On iPhone 17 Pro Max running iOS 26.3 Beta 1, we're at about 37 degrees Celsius. On the iPhone Air running iOS 26.2, we're at about 42.5 degrees Celsius. And on iPhone 16 Pro Max running iOS 18.7.3, we're at about 35.4 degrees Celsius in the hottest location. So overall, doing around what you would expect, a little bit warmer, especially on the iPhone Air, but this thing generates a lot of heat. Benchmarks completed, and from left to right, we have the 16 Pro Max on iOS 18.7.3, the iPhone Air on 26.2, and the iPhone 17 Pro Max on 26.3 Beta 1. So this gives you an idea of overall scores. Now, I've run this benchmark 3 times on the 17 Pro Max on 26.3, and you'll see the best scores sort of vary back and forth, but basically 3,743 for single core was what I just got, but before I had 3,820. Then I had 9,681 for multi-core. It goes up and down, varies greatly, but overall it's good. It's well within the margin of error. Typically when the public release comes out, you can score about 10,000 for benchmarks. But again, you have to run it a few times, so it's not super accurate, but just shows what the processor is capable of. When it comes to overall battery life, let's first take a look at iOS 26.2. Thanks to Abhishek for sending this in. This is on an iPhone 16e running iOS 26.2, set to 80% charge limit with 100% battery health. He had 5 hours and 54 minutes of screen on time, 50 minutes of screen off time, and used 70% of the battery. This is pretty phenomenal battery life overall, and for those of you not having good battery life on iOS 26.2, just give it a few more days. It should improve over time, but make sure you update the recent apps as well, as some of those have been causing some issues. When it comes to battery life on iOS 26.3 Beta 1, if we take a look here at battery health, I have 100% capacity with 34 cycles. You can see more details here with coconut battery, but if we take a look at my overall usage, you'll see here just today, I have 2 hours and 27 minutes of screen active time, 1 hour and 30 minutes of screen idle time, and I've used 28% or so of the battery. Yesterday, 3 hours and 25 minutes of screen active time using 56% of the battery. It seems like an improvement from before with 26.2. Depending on what day I was using it, 2 hours and 12 minutes of screen active time and used 55%. So overall, it seems like an improvement, but it does take some time to get a little bit better. Now, if you're wondering if you should install iOS 26.3 betas, at this point I would hold off if you haven't installed it already, as typically we won't have another update until the new year. So it's going to be a few weeks, so if you have additional issues, there won't be any resolution for them until after the new year typically. So I would stick with iOS 26.2, and again, as I mentioned before, we could see an iOS 26.2.1. Now, as far as the overall experience, let's take a look at some of your comments. Dentist KK said, keyboard touch issues and lag, idle battery drain, resprings, and minor UI bugs and glitches here and there. Not a good experience with 26.2 on 16 Pro. Urgently needed a fix with 26.2.1. Shrivam Krishan says, battery improved a lot on 17 Pro Max. However, RAM management remains average. My 16 Pro Max with 8GB of RAM on iOS 17.7 and 17 Pro Max with 12GB of RAM on 26.2 performs the same. Vargak says, Hi Zolotech, this is by far the best version of iOS on my iPhone 13 Pro Max. Geekbench scores are the highest, single core 2,459, multi-core 6,209. It runs very smoothly, even the battery management is better. Well done, Apple. Aiden Middleton 4550 says, I'm currently on iOS 26.2 iPhone 17 Pro Max. Performance is nice and fast, and battery life is absolutely amazing. By far the best update of iOS 26. Omni the Alchemist said, iOS 26.3 Beta 1 is finally the only iOS 26 version that balances performance and battery on my 15 Pro Max. No stutters ever now, and battery lasts 13 hours now with screen on time, and the best part is almost no bugs. Erwin Gia says, everything is improved compared to iOS 26.2. Been running iOS 26.3 beta for a few days. Battery life is better. RAM management also has improved, although not to the same level of iOS 18.7.2. I'm using 13 Pro Max. When it comes to overall storage, if we go to Settings, General, and then iPhone Storage, scroll to the bottom, you'll see iOS 26.3 Beta 1 is taking up 23.08 gigabytes compared to iOS 26.2 taking up 20.36 gigabytes. Most of that is from Apple Intelligence. So overall, not much of a bigger update. Some people may have a smaller update as well. When it comes to system data, that's going to vary up and down as cache data, so I really wouldn't take a look at this or really pay any attention to it unless you don't have any storage left where you can't install app updates. When it comes to iOS 18.7.3, well, this is the bunker. It's where people stay for safety and reliability, and this gets an A grade. People are staying put on iOS 18.7.3 for its fast performance and reliable battery life. Those who don't care about features and prefer solid battery life and reliability are staying on iOS 18 for now until iOS 26 is at the point of the same reliability. However, this might be the last version of iOS 18 for those devices that support iOS 26. Hopefully Apple pushes 18.7.4 to all devices, but it's seeming unlikely at this point. iOS 26.2 is liquid glass with solid lag. It gets a grade of C, with iOS 26.2 fixing a lot of issues people had in earlier versions of iOS 26, but it still has additional issues. The heavy UI elements with the animations, which are nice, they sort of pop out and look great at times, seem to be very taxing, especially on older processors, making them slow and stuttery. It also seems to heat up the older phones as well. It still has some bugs that I would not expect at this point, like resprings and connectivity issues, and hopefully the recent shakeup at Apple with their executives helps fix the issues in the near future. iOS 26.3 Beta 1 is optimization under construction. It gets a grade of B, and the new beta seems to be outperforming iOS 26 on all devices for most, and fix the RAM management issues even going into apps like YouTube, but it's still in need of refinement. However, by the time we get to iOS 26.3's public release, iOS 26 should finally be at a point where we can recommend it for those on iOS 18. However, only time will tell. Sadly, again, for those that want the best experience without features or the latest updates, iOS 18 has no way to downgrade to it currently. So I would love to see Apple bring that back as long as it has the latest security patches. And so that's everything with iOS 26.2, 26.3 Beta 1, and iOS 18.7.3. There's some solid updates. I'm looking forward to what Apple has next year, and hopefully the experience just gets better and better. Let me know what you think of liquid glass as well as the overall experience in the comments below, and I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.